Yes. Now, chapter 3 of strategic management is strategic analysis, where we would be considering both external environment of the organization and also the internal environment of the organization. Now, yes, you might have studied about all this environment, business environment, the variables that are there in maybe in almost all the subject. But what you have to remember and what you have to understand is the fact that here you are speaking from the perspective of how does this business environment will affect for an organization in coming up with better strategies for the organization, or how do these variables affect the organization in making strategies. The strategies might be in terms of being from the point of view of competitor, or might be from the viewpoint of diversification. Now, your strategic management might also sound similar to that of Indian, international business environment that you have studied. But do always remember that what we are speaking might sound same, but the way how you have to defend these topics is far different from the name what you have learnt maybe twice or thrice. That is to tell, yes, external environment, you know that there is political environment, that there is economical environment, all other things that we speak. But here you are not just naming them, you're going to speak how all this environment will have an effect on your organization when it has to come up with its strategy. So that is what is important when you speak about strategic management. Now, yes, we started with business environment. We saw each one of the variable and how does all this affects in the organization coming up with a better strategy for the organization. Then we spoke about the link that is there between the factors of the environment and its impact on the organization. Then we spoke about internal and external environment, and we also spoke about what is environmental scanning and what are the benefits of environmental scanning. We also studied in detail what SWOT analysis is all about. Then we also studied the basic components of external environment, where the microenvironment we divided it on the basis of, especially if you observe, it is nothing but Porter's 5 force model. Then we also studied the general and industrial environment. Then we spoke about the general business environment. We spoke about competitive and industrial analysis, and we did discuss about competitive environment and the competitive environment of the firm, and how does it has a connection with the external environment. Then we also studied in detail Porter's 5 force model. Each one of the 5 force models we studied in detail with explanation. Then we also studied structural analysis of the industry. Now, structural analysis of the industry also you can speak in terms of Porter's 5 force model. Then we also discussed why is that managers do use this particular theory more than any other theories. Then we also spoke about market position of the competitors. We spoke about industrial analysis. Then we spoke about driving forces and industry key success factors, or KSFs, that we can speak of. Then we spoke about common types of key success factors that are there, and we had concluded the last session by discussing the 9-box matrix of industry attractiveness, where on the y-axis we had industry attractiveness and on the x-axis we, as you can see, we have competitive strength of business unit, and each one of that we had discussed. From today's session onwards, we shall discuss about the organizational appraisal, or what this organization appraisal is all about, and why is that we'll have to know what it is. Now, we speak a lot about this environment. So now, whenever we speak about environment. Now, the internal environment of any organization. Now, it is always determined by the forces that are there in the organization, maybe the organization resources that exist, or the behavior of the organization. It can also be the strength of the organization and the weaknesses, or it can also be the synergistic effects and the competencies that the organization has. So this organizational appraisal, what we call, now it is concerned with the internal environment of an organization. Now this enables organization to especially decide what it can do when it analyzes the organizational resource or the behavior, or as we said, maybe the strength, weakness, or synergetic effects. So this organizational appraisal, now it is nothing but a systematic evaluation of the internal environment of any organization. And when it does this systematic evaluation, it sees to that it does this work to determine the strength and the weaknesses. Now, why do it has to know strength and the weakness is that by studying that, this organizational appraisal, it sees to that how much influence a firm's ability is there to achieve its own goal. So the organizational strengths, it always enables a firm to decide the area which it has taken. Now, if I have to give an example, maybe any organization, if at all it has its strength in marketing area, it is always better that they should not go for, production and manufacturing, but focus more and more on marketing activities. So by analyzing the weakness, an organization, it can take various actions to overcome its own drawbacks. So analyzing the strength and weakness and matching them with the environment opportunities and threats is very necessary for strategic formulation of a firm. Now generally the strength and weakness of an organization, it is measured in terms of its environment, because otherwise it is very difficult to state which factor is strength or which weakness for a firm is. So the process of organizational appraisal, it can be described in a sequence of activities. So when we speak about this sequence of activity, first it all starts with identifying the key elements that are there in the organization. Now, the various factors that can be evaluated to determine the strength and weakness of the organization, they are identified in the first step of the organization appraisal. So the section of key factors, it may relate to marketing, it may be relating to accounting, maybe manufacturing, maybe finance, research or development, or it can also be about organization structure or the management pattern. So the key factors, it should cover all the aspects of organization. That is what necessary. So once after the key factors are identified, then it is better to move on to identifying the importance of these key factors. That is to tell, yes, you might have identified two or three key factors, but then the importance of each one of these key factors might be different, or it is to tell the importance of these key factors, they may not be equal. Now, some factors might be more important and some might be comparatively of lesser importance. So, the nature of the organization and also the environment in which this organization is, it determines the relative importance of all these factors. So, the contribution of each factor in the achievement of certain key result also determines their relative importance. And there are also chances that it can do it by relating the key factors with the critical success factors of the firm. So the relative importance of the factors can be determined. So here the importance of key factors are identified and later on they are compared with the requirements of the critical success factors. Now after that comes the assessing of strength and weaknesses, especially on the part of key factors. Now these strategic key factors what we are speaking, now they help a lot to understand the organizational strength and weakness in respect of the factors that are to be considered. So the contribution made by these key success factors, especially in achieving the organizational objectives, is something which defines the organizational strength on that particular factor that has been selected. Now, the negative contributions made by the factor in achieving the organizational objectives define the organizational weakness of those particular key factors. Now, the organizational strength and weakness, it can also be understood by assessing or by making the comparative analysis of key strategic factors, especially with those of the competitors. And also there are quite a few techniques like those which might be of financial analysis, or what we can call as key factor rating, or the functional area profile, or you do have resource development matrix. Now all these techniques, they help in assessment of organizational strength and also the weaknesses of the organization. Then the fourth one, we have preparing the organizational capability profile. Now the organizational capability profile, it is especially prepared on the basis of organizational strength and weaknesses. Now this profile or this a carefully written information regarding the organization, or what we call as profile, it shows the strong areas of the organization in terms of degree. That is, if quantitative measurement is used for strength and weakness, then positive numbers can be used for strength and negative number can be used for weakness. Or in other words, the greater numbers can be used for strengths and the smaller numbers shall be used for weaknesses. And finally we have here relating organizational capability to strength. Now here many strategic actions is taken to increase the organizational strength and also reduce the organizational weakness. So the result of these strategies, it is long run that fits the organization into its environment and also taking into account the strategic strengths. So this is these 5 steps, we can consider it as the process of organizational appraisal. So moving on to this, right now we are speaking about this internal environment. So, and we are especially speaking it in terms of analyzing this internal environment. So, whenever we analyze the internal environment of any organization, it especially helps to determine what an organization can do given the resources that it has, given the behavior that it owns, given its own strength and weaknesses. So the coordination, cooperation, or what we can call as the interplay of an organization resource behavior, or the strength, weakness, synergic effects, and also even competences, it helps it to excel in a particular field, and thereby it gives the organization the strategic advantage. So the nature of internal environment of an organization, it can be determined by its resources or behavior, or the other elements that we spoke. So now each one that we are speaking, we shall see in detail. What are this? We said organizational resources, organizational behavior, its strength and weaknesses. Now speaking about the organizational resources. The various organizational resources Now, speaking of organizational resources, the various organization resources, it can be tangible as well as intangible. That includes all assets or the capabilities. It includes organizational processes. It includes information, knowledge, and all other resources. It need not be only the physical resources as we understand. So these resources, they can further be classified as physical resources, human resource, and organizational resource, or even technology. Or we also do have plant and equipment. We have geographical location to be the resource of organization as well. So these are some of the example of physical resources of an organization. Then we do have the training, the experience, the judgment. You have intelligence, the relationships among the other organization in the industry or outside the industries. All these are also organizational resources, and these shall be in the form of human resource who are present in the organization. Then we have the formal and informal relationships, and there is organization structure. So all these resources, it leads to strategic advantage for an organization. Now if these resources possess what we can call as the most important four characteristics, that is, these resources are valuable in terms of their importance, they are rare, if they are costly to imitate, and finally non substitutable, then we can consider that the organization is having the best possible resources. So when a firm possesses superior resource and they are being utilized more efficiently, it will always lead to better satisfaction for the customers. Now given them better value for a given cost, and that will lead to superior strategic advantage for the firm. So the most important factor on which the success of an organization depends is the cost and also the availability of the resources, along with the efficiency with which these resources are being used. The second one that we spoke about is organizational behavior. Now, what might be this organizational behavior? Now, there are various forces and also there are influence. Now, these forces and the influences, they create the ability for, place constraints, especially on efficient utilization of these resources. So, in an organization which has the organizational shared values, its own culture, or quality of work and environment, or it has a good organizational climate, or the politics in an organization, and also even the use of power in the organization. These are some of the important forces and also the influences which affects the organizational behavior. So organizational behavior is nothing but it is the special identity and also the character of an organization. Then we have the strengths and the weaknesses. So when the organization resource and behavior combines, they normally create strength and weaknesses for any organization in question. So the inherent capability within the internal environment of an organization, that helps to gain strategic advantage is nothing but the strength of any organization. So if that is strength, on the other hand, all those inherent limitation or all those inherent, constraints or drawbacks which creates strategic disadvantage is nothing but the weaknesses of an organization. If it has to be said by giving an example, the availability of various resources, maybe for financing, maybe it is available at low cost of capital, and maybe the efficient utilization of the same. It is nothing but a good example for financial strength of an organization. So the strength and weakness combined with the different functional areas within an organization, it normally creates synergetic effects for the firm. So that is what we are speaking next, that is synergetic effects. So to speak about synergetic effect in a very simple way, now it can be expressed as 2 plus 2 is equal to 5 or 3 effect. So that is to tell, the product, the pricing, the promotion and distributional aspects of an organization, if they supports each other and they create synergetic effect, resulting in a high level of marketing synergy. So synergetic effects are important determinant of the quality and also the type of internal environment that is existing within the organization. So synergic effects, it may lead to the development of the competences of an organization. So that's when we speak about competences. So when we have to speak about competences, the resources and the behavior of an organization, it develops certain strength and also weaknesses. So when these are combined, it leads to synergetic effect for the firm. So this effect or the synergetic effects, it normally leads to organizational competencies. So what are these competences? Now competences, they are the special quality of an organization which is a total result or the net result of the strategic advantage and also the strategic disadvantage, which determines its ability to compete with its rivals. So the capability to use the competencies exceedingly well turns them into core competencies. Then we have organizational capability. Now, speaking about this, the capacity or the potential of an organization, to use its strength and to overcome its weakness in order to exploit the opportunities and in order to face the threats in its external environment is called the capability of an organization. Now, the resources of an organization, though it is valuable, there might be chance that it may be worthless without the organization having capacity to use this uniqueness of the resources that it has. So organizational capability is the measurable and also the comparable attribute which is the sum total of all these resources and behavior, the strength and weakness or the synergic effects of any organization. And finally we have strategic and competitive advantage. So, the outcome of this organizational capability is nothing but the strategic advantage. To tell it in other words, they are nothing but the net result of all the organizational activities which leads to rewards, maybe in terms of profit, maybe in terms of shareholders value, maybe in terms of market share, maybe in terms of reputation. So the penalties in terms of financial loss and damage to the market share or the strategic disadvantage of the organization. So this strategic advantage, they are measured in absolute terms, like maybe higher the profit, better is the strategic advantage, and lower the profit, there is a drawback in the strategic advantage or what we call it as strategic disadvantage. Now they are also comparable in terms of maybe so the yes. So now the outcome of this organizational capability is the strategic advantage. So they are nothing but the net result of the organizational activities, which is leading to rewards in terms of profit or in terms of shareholders value, market share, reputation, and other such things. And on the other side, we have the penalties also, as maybe in terms of financial loss and damage to the market share. These are the strategic disadvantage for an organization. So this strategic advantage are measurable in absolute terms, like maybe the higher the profit, the better is the strategic advantage, or the lower the profit, there is some problem with the strategic of the organization, or what we can call it as strategic disadvantage. So they are also comparable maybe in terms of historic performance, as well as the current performance with respect to its competitors in the industry. So the competitive advantage is relative, and also it is measured and compared with respect to other rivals in the industry. Now in competitive advantage, the rewards, or we can also consider the rewards and the penalties. Both of these could be measured against one or more identified rivals. So it is always a special case of strategic advantage. So these seven we can consider it as the dynamics of internal environment. So we shall move on to the next slide, that is value chain analysis. Now value chain analysis you have already studied. Here we shall see the value chain analysis as a technique of, or how can we use this value analysis for organizational appraisal. Now as we all know, this particular concept was developed by Porter, or Michael Porter, in the year 1985. So, now based on the understanding of a series of activities that any organization or a firm performs, this particular value chain analysis, it helps to assess the strength and also the weaknesses of an organization. Now if you closely observe this particular diagram, this particular chain, it is nothing but, it can be said as a set of interlinked value which creates activities performed by an organization. So the competitive advantage for any organization or for any firm, it can be determined by understanding the linkages and also the relationship between the various activities that normally a firm performs. So the various activities of a firm, it may begin with the procurement of the basic raw materials. It may be the process into various stage and end with the product marketed to the ultimate consumer. So primary and support activities, as you can see, are the two main parts into which Michael Porter divides the value chain of manufacturing concern. So this primary activities, as you can see, it is further divided into 5 sub-activities, that is inbound logistics, the operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and services. And all these sub-activities, they are directly related to flow of the product that happens to the consumer. So first one is inbound logistics. So as you can see or as you understand it, these activities they are concerned with the maybe the receiving of the logistic, storing of those, transporting it, and also distributing the inputs to the production process. So these activities, it includes maybe material handling or stock control, transport, warehousing, and all other things that are necessary in bringing the logistics to the organization. The second one that we have is operation. So here under it is concerned with transformation of the raw materials into the final product or the service that the organization has to offer. So whenever we tell operation, it does definitely include machining or packaging, maybe assembling, the fabrication, maybe maintaining, the testing, and all other things. Then we have outbound logistics. So when we speak about outbound logistics, now these activities they are concerned with receiving, storing, transporting, and also distributing the outputs out of the production process. Now, for tangible products, these activities could be, maybe like warehousing, transport, or material handling. But then, if it is service, it may be more concerned with, arrangements, maybe for bringing the customer to the services. If at all the services are offered only in a fixed location. So these can be given as example. Then we have marketing and sales. So as the name suggests, these activities it is concerned with all the methods that an organization uses to market and sell its products to the customer. It is nothing but the typical marketing and sales activities that an organization uses. Could it be pricing? Could it be developing products or advertising, the promotions, and also it does include distribution when we speak about sales. And finally, we have services. So now when we speak about services, now these are concerned with all the activities that an organization uses to enhance or maintain the value of its products or services. For example, service activities of an organization can be installation, repair, or spares, or customer training. So each of the primary activity, it is linked to the supporting activities as you can see. And the supporting activities, they are always present in the organization so that they can sustain the primary activities of the organization. Now, under supporting activities, we have firm infrastructure, the human resource management, the technology development, and the procurement. So when we speak about this firm infrastructure, now whenever an organization, if it has to analyze or if it has to ascertain the opportunities that it can make use of, or the threats that it has to face, or the strengths that it has, or the weaknesses that it has to overcome by considering the external environment. Normally, an organization performs various different activities. Now, all these activities, they are generally helpful for the management of an organization and also for achieving its objectives. So all such activities, they are normally categorized into firm infrastructure. Now, not only this, when we speak about the firm infrastructure, even the accounting or the typical work of financing, the planning, all the general management that is there, the legal support that the organization has, and even managing government relations, all these are categorized into firm infrastructure activities. Then we have human resource management. Now, as the name suggests, this particular aspect is to manage the human resource of an organization. And to manage the human resource, there shall definitely be various activities which are performed, like maybe recruitment, it could be selection, it could be training, and definitely when we speak training, developing is there. It can be appraising of human resource or compensating the employees. Now, all such activities, they can be put under the head of human resource management activities. Then we have technology development, which is more than ever has high importance in the recent days. So now in order to create, develop and improve its product and service, various activities shall be performed by the organization, like research and development on product design, or maybe the process design, the equipment design and service procedures. So these activities, they are categorized as technology development activities. Then we have procurement. So now in order to procure products and to provide services, an organization, it needs to procure inputs. So all the efforts which are headed towards the procurement of inputs for the organization are categorized into procurement activities. So the value chain analysis that we spoke right now, it is the interrelation of this chain of various primary activities and also the supporting activities which are very much necessary to be undertaken in an organization so that the organization can come up with a finished product to the ultimate consumer. So the efficiency of use of these interrelated activities, they determine the profit margin that an organization can earn. So it is a useful method of organizational appraisal. So this method provides clarity about the strength and weaknesses in the internal environment of the organization, or for that matter of any organization. It need not be only a corporate company. So in general, these activities that provide more value to the customer, especially at less cost, are nothing but the strengths of the organization. And the activities that provide less value to the customer, along with being more cost, are considered as weakness of the organization. So in such a case, the organization should outsource those activities that an external party could perform better in the areas where the organization is strong, should be retained as they are the competencies of the organization. So the value chain analysis, it is a very, very useful method for organizational appraisal. However, do not forget the fact that even the value chain analysis suffers from various limitation. Especially it can be because as it seems to be very simple. Now whenever you see primary activities are there, and yes, all these 5 primary activity, any organization that is in question does it. The supporting activities as well, every organization has it. When we do explain, it is easier, but then actually to come up with all the elements that can be listed within that, it is very difficult, and it is also difficult to implement. So the term value, it is very hazy, as it is very difficult to define what constitutes value for the customer. This is an entirely huge topic, an entirely different topic, because no matter what an organization does, how better it does, ultimately it all depends upon how much value can a customer give to the product that you have come up with. So this method requires a very complex data collection from various different resources, which is in itself definitely is a very difficult task. So this is all about the value chain analysis. So now if we have to speak regarding whatever we discussed today, we did speak about the organizational appraisal. So whatever we discussed today, it is all this comes under organizational appraisal, and yes, do give a lot of attention to maybe the SWOT analysis or the value chain analysis. Yes, you do definitely know what it is. Maybe as a picture you remember, maybe as supporting activities and primary activities you do remember. But until unless you list it out, until unless you read it for yourself, believe me, it shall definitely be difficult for you all when you have to write. So anyhow, you do have internals, so please do study. So now if I have to just wrap up this session and tell what we spoke in today's class, whenever we tell internal environment. Now internal environment, it is nothing but it is the interplay of it could be the organizational resource, the behavior, the strength, the weakness. All this, it determines the internal environment of the organization. Then we spoke about organizational appraisal. So this organizational appraisal is nothing but there we do a systematic evaluation. Now systematic evaluation we do of the internal environment, and we do this evaluation in order to determine or in order to understand the strength and weakness. And it doesn't stop there. We see the influences of all these strengths and weaknesses on the firm's ability to achieve the goal what it has come up with. That is all about the organizational appraisal. Then we spoke about the key factors. Now the process of organizational process, we spoke it in terms of sequential activities, 5 different sequential activities. It includes key factor identification. Once you identify the very important factors, you see how much importance each of these key factors has, and once after we understand that, we did assess the strength and weaknesses of all these key factors. Then we spoke about preparing the organizational capability and relating organizational capability to the strength of the organization strategy. So what we can tell is that the analysis that we do of the internal environment of organization, it helps to determine what our organization can do given the organizational resource and behavior and also the strength and weaknesses. So the interplay of an organizational resources or behavior and even the synergic effect and competences, it always helps an organization to excel in the particular field that it is concentrating on, and thereby it gives the organization the strategic advantage. Now, the various components of the internal environment of an organization, as we discussed in our today's class, it includes maybe the resource, behavior, the synergetic effect, competences, and organizational capability, and also strategic competitive advantage. And finally, we spoke about the value chain. So the value chain, it is a set of interlinked value which creates activities, which speaks about the activities that are performed by an organization. So the competitive advantage of a firm, it can be determined with the linkages and the relationship between the various activities that a firm performs. Now the various activities of a firm, it may begin with procurement of basic raw materials or that process into various stages and end with the product marketed to the ultimate consumer. So primary and support activities are the two main parts into which this value chain, or Michael Porter divides the value chain of an manufacturing concern.